Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Wednesday high noon. Bo Wulf and the handsome Rich himself, Rich Hofmann, here to talk about God knows what on July 3rd and the doldrums of the NFL season. We're going to take a little spin around what's going on in Philadelphia sports, maybe use my own Eagle. That's the only thing I can use to contextualize anything. I only know about the Eagles and nothing else, and so we'll use that as a reference point to talk about some of the things that you know all about. Rich, you've got the newsletter pumping out continuously every day. You are Mr. Philly Sports. I think you are the Renaissance man who can cover it all. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bo. Thank you for that description. It's funny, we've been doing the newsletter for about 9 months now, and like the last week, I have not really touched the Eagles, which is funny because they are, I would say, for most of the year, they are the main focus of the newsletter. But yeah, it's like the 1 month of the year where the NFL just kind of shuts down a little bit.
You a big 4th of July guy?
No. And I don't want to say I'm not patriotic, but I'm not a big 4th of July guy. I don't know, like the Jersey Shore where I like to go down a lot of the time in the summer, it's too crowded. Yep. Way too crowded. And the two holidays in the summer that are just ridiculous are Memorial Day and the 4th of July. So, I'd like to hang out with a couple friends, whether, somebody has a backyard, grill out there, but I would say it's more of kind of a low key holiday for me. What about you?
Yeah, I feel like the thing that people always say about New Year's Eve is it's like it's like for the it's like a drinking holiday for the people who don't drink or whatever. Like it's for the Johnny come latelys. I feel like that's like July 4th. Like, oh, you want to like go barbecue and hang out outside? Yeah. How about every other day in the summer you could do that?
It's something you probably do at least two other times
which is nice, but yeah,
during these 3 months span. I will say for most people, maybe not for me, but having it on Thursday is pretty nice, right? That blends into take Friday off, have the long weekend.
Unless you have to do a show on Friday.
Yes, which I may or may not have to do. But I have in a past life, I have, like the longer weekend element of it too. But yeah, it's not I don't know, it's not that big of a deal. There's like, you turn on the TV, there's the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. There's just it's a ridiculous day, or just kind of a normal day.
What do you think is the most hot dogs you ever put down in a day?
Oh, 3 or 4, maybe.
Yeah, it seems about
it's
right.
Not a high number. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at some point in my life I've probably had 4 hot dogs, but not making it
like a dollar dog night, or just like a barbecue where you just
probably a barbecue where there weren't like burger options. I'm just living life.
But hard to screw up a hot dog too.
It is hard to screw up a hot dog, but probably lower ceiling.
It's a high floor food, low ceiling though. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I'm sure the founding fathers would have a great time watching how the world is going these days on July 4th if they got time machined in, like we had a time machine episode yesterday. All right, let's talk about the big addition. Actually, before we get to Paul George, let's talk about have you seen some of these clips from the Giants Hard Knocks that have been going around?
And to be honest with you, Bo, like I know that Amazon has done the in-season Hard Knocks for a few years now. Even they did it with the Eagles the 1 year. I had no idea this existed. Like, you see on Twitter these behind the scene clips of Joe Shane and John Mara. It was what a nice surprise. Like at the dead period.
I can't believe they let this stuff be seen.
No, and that's what made it even funnier. Yes, I have seen like the 3 or 4 clips that are surfacing, and the clips are so good. I am going to go back over this weekend and watch the entire show. I think I am too. Basically must watch TV now.
Yeah, I mean the clip of Joe the two ones that are so funny to me. One is the Joe Shane John Mara back and forth, where it's like John Mara like wants to be like, I want Saquon Barkley, man. Like I'm the owner, and Joe Shane's like, well, we're paying Daniel Jones all this money, and it's so funny that like he's coming by what is probably the right decision for them to not overpay a running back, but for like the most backwards logic possible, like, well, we can't sign him because we finally have to figure out if Daniel Jones is good or not, as if you shouldn't have figured that out before you gave him all that money. But the one with like the front office consiglieres where,
Yes.
Brandon Brown, who used to work in the Eagles front office, is there, and the director of pro personnel is like, he's trying to be very coy about it and like as respectful as possible, but he's like, so what are we going to do? What's going to be our identity on offense? And the funniest thing to me is Shane is like, he's lamenting the mental headache of the season before and dealing with the distractions of like having to maybe work out a contract with Saquon Barkley. He's like, took 10 years off my life, man. And I don't know, I don't want to make that the reason we don't do something that might be right for the franchise, but I got to think about it. Like, I mean, your boy needs some sleep. Like
Bo, it was so funny. And the Mara kind of the angry blank stares were just killing me. They were cutting back and forth to him. And then as Joe Shane is running through the logic of, all right, I think we need to bolster the offensive line a little bit. He starts listing the skill position players, and in some brilliant production by HBO or whoever the hell is doing this, I have no idea, NFL Films, whatever. They cut as he is running through all the skill guys. They cut to a screen of an all 22 snap, and they kind of start highlighting all of the players, and the players that they highlight: Darren Waller, retired, Daniel Bellinger, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, and Darius Slayton. And Shane is like trying to gas them up a little bit. Like he's trying to tell you, he's like, we're going to get Wan'Dale healthy this year. And I'm just thinking like, man, what is going on here? Like, the Eagles, not a perfect roster, but you went through the best skill position players, kind of the best core group of skill guys with Zach a few weeks ago. The Giants, if you did the opposite, if you did the worst in the league, that was a pretty rough group. I know they just added the receiver from LSU, which should certainly help. He seems like a very good player. Whew, it's not great. And then the other thing when the director of player personnel, I forget his name.
Yeah,
he said,
like licking his lips.
He goes, we lose Saquon. What is our identity on offense? And then the room goes completely quiet, and it's like, well, like your identity on offense.
Like fill the silence. He's like, because we're losing the guy who gets yards. We're losing our explosive plays. We're losing And
I'm thinking like, as much as like Joe Shane does not come off great here, it's like, well, our identity is still bad if we lose
exactly
them.
Right.
Like
we need an identity as like the 25th best offense in football. Like
we might stink, but we have an identity. Yeah. So it was very funny. And the other takeaway I had from that scene is interesting setup there. No conference table, just like a little powwow in Shane's office.
I totally agree. That was very weird. And it was like it was done for the cameras. Like these guys aren't usually invited into these conversations. It's usually much more just Mara walking into the office and the two of those guys just hammering it out. And it's also funny when his explanation is like, well, what we're going to do is like, we got to protect him. We're going to address the offensive line in free agency. That's how we're going to spend this money that we're not going to spend on Saquon. And the big moves were like overpaying John Runyon Jr. and signing Jermaine Eliumanor. So offensive line is solved.
I'm not sure it would be Brandon Brown, but like the last guy in that room probably was like, wait, we're having like a serious discussion in here, like right now. Like I thought we were just ordering lunch.
I'm squeezed in this like half-size couch. Like, can I get a chair to myself, please?
Anyway, this is a high recommendation to based off these 3 clips to watch this show because I really got a kick out of those 3 clips.
So good. I couldn't like took 10 years off my life, man. That was so good.
Do you think that the Giants are going to be worse than Washington this year?
I think I would take the Giants as more likely to win like 6 games. But I don't know. Maybe Jaden Daniels will be awesome.
But you would say, like the way I look at it,
as Zach would say, the Commanders do have that fantastic coaching staff at their disposal, so they might be able to overachieve. Yeah.
What was it, number 10 in the league?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Cliff
and DQ, baby.
Yeah. It seems to me that Washington probably is going to be a little worse this year, but at least has the potential with that great coaching staff. Not really the great coaching staff, but the quarterback and
certainly Jaden Daniels has more upside than Daniel Jones does, right? Like
there was a lot of Joe Schoen saying, "Hey, look, we got to find out if Daniel's the guy." I guess you do.
It is funny to imagine Daniel Jones watching this because it's not only like, will we find out, but then even in that meeting, the guy's like, well, if it's Daniel or whoever else, they're openly like, who's going to be the quarterback? And they did sign Drew Lock, and I think there's a like 45 turkey chance that Drew Lock is like unseating Daniel Jones as the quarterback at some point this season.
Does Drew Lock have more wins versus the Eagles than Daniel Jones?
Ooh, good question. Now, I think Daniel Jones had the week 18 game in 2022 when the Eagles sat everybody. They won that game, and then they played 2 weeks later. But it might be close.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Yeah, no, it would be a very weird situation for Daniel Jones to be watching this being like, man, they don't believe in me at all. Now, in fairness, like, he should probably realize like, well, there's a reason they don't believe in me at all. It's kind of amazing they believed in me
because you paid me all that money and I had to hand it off to a $10 million running back. Let me cook, man. I'm
just thinking of like a stack of money, $40 million handing off to $12 million. It just doesn't sit right to me. It's not how it's supposed to work.
And yes, as the commenters are saying, Zach should have been DQ'd yesterday for drafting Calais Campbell, just like I should have been DQ'd last week in the all NFL draft for taking 2 Giants for some reason. So maybe the ledger is even. All right, let's talk Paul George. And I know that you have been a part of the PHLY Sixers podcast. It has been fun to follow. I want to know from an Eagles standpoint, Rich. Let me give you a couple. Eagles free agent signings of recent memory on the scale, and you tell me where you think Paul George is going to net out. Okay, at the bottom of the line, you've got DeMarco Murray in 2015, which was like a bad overpay investment on its face at the beginning and turned out disastrously. Then you've got Nnamdi in 2011, 30 years old at the time, felt like worth the risk and a bit of a coup to be able to get him at the time and maybe surprising people. But you did wonder, why are they letting him go? And it obviously did not turn out very well. The next up on the scale, you've got Alshon in 2017. Like you know that you're overpaying a little bit for competence, but you know also that it's the perfect fit. And obviously it turned out well. And then on the high end, just sticking with free agents, I'm going Asante in 2008. Which what maybe looked like an overpay at first, and there were real questions about like why are the Patriots letting this guy go, and he turns out to be a stud.
So I don't know where it's going to like end up, Bo, but the one and you mentioned it in your description of all those moves. It's very clear to me that at the time of the signing, this is Nnamdi Asomugha is what this is like, right? Player on the older side, but seemed like a coup, right? Didn't seem like somebody that the Eagles were going to be able to get for a long time. And then surprise, they are the team left standing. Older player as well, like some age concerns. I feel like 34 in basketball is pretty equivalent to 30 playing the quarterback position. Might honestly be younger. And yeah, so I think that is where it kind of nets out to me. Now, is it going to actually turn out to be the same as Nnamdi? I'm trying to remember like the Nnamdi era. Was he just not as impactful from the get-go? Because I'm just saying that because there was so much else wrong with those teams, right? Like they were poorly put together, all these old guys, the coaching staff made some weird choices. Like you were there for that era. He just was not quite as impactful, right?
Yeah, I'm like a little bit of a Nnamdi apologist.
Okay.
Like I think he gets a slight bad rap for his Eagles time. Not that he was good, but like he wasn't the only problem, as you're saying. And it was like they were using him in a much different way than he was used in Oakland. And I think like the eats lunch by himself stuff was like overplayed, and maybe he's just one small part of a team that was 53 players, 53 cabs, to steal the 86 Mets phrase. Also, not for nothing, he and I collaborated on the award-winning Bird on a Wire series, wherein every week we would compare a player on the Eagles team to a character from The Wire, because he was a big Wire fan. So, he'll always have a spot in my heart for that reason. But yeah, I think it was, you were paying for the reputation without considering the fit. And it was more about, the way that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman were described in the, Bill Belichick flirtation, is that they're like sort of like star hunters, which we talk about Daryl Morey that way, right? I think it was more about the flash of, oh man, we can actually get this guy, than it was like, how is he going to fit? What's the plan? It was much more of a collection of parts than building a sensible team.
Well, and I remember they had the big storyline going into that season was, they have the three corners, right? They have DRC, they have Asante, and they have Nnamdi.
DRC is so athletic. Of course he could play in the slot.
Exactly. So I guess the Paul George one is a little bit different, because Paul George is actually like a good fit. Like, the Sixers have a point guard, they have a big guy, get a wing in between them that can shoot threes. That's actually a good fit. Is he still going to be good? I don't know. How is he going to age? Like, what is his health going to be like? You could say that about Embiid as well. So I guess it's a little bit different in that respect. But yeah, I remember like just the sheer surprise when they signed Nnamdi. Like,
yeah,
I think it was it the same day the Phillies traded for Hunter Pence? I think it was right around that time.
Yeah.
And I think I grouped those two together because they didn't go quite so hot in those. But I just remember, like, it was just like, wow, the Eagles actually got this guy. They weren't really talked up as a major suitor for most of his free agency, if I remember that correctly.
No, and I remember Dave Spadera was live on air. This is when I was working for PhiladelphiaEagles.com, and we were at Lehigh, and Dave's live on air, and like Schefter, I believe, breaks it, and he keeps reading the Schefter tweet. Nnamdi to the ... Eagles. Nnamdi Asomugha.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Eagles. And he's like, he's freaking out, of course, as you would expect. But I'll always remember that, like, the line reading, but from Dave, the ... Eagles, and he's going nuts. And it seemed too good to be true.
Man, that was a different time of Twitter. Now it would be like Random Agent X and Random Agent X of CAA Sports negotiated the deal.
Yes, exactly. What a job by them.
What a job by them. They put pen to paper. Great job.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that's, I think the ... Yeah, that like goes to show, like, yeah, that was not a team that was talked about in the Nnamdi sweepstakes. I think Dallas weren't they like pretty heavily interested in
that sounds right.
Time too?
That sounds right.
Yeah. And I just remember that offseason too. It's just like the classic, like in football, just like winning free agency doesn't always mean that the season's going to go so great,
Yes, I agree with that. As for the actual Paul George of it all, you wrote about this a little bit in the newsletter.
Is it Paul George or is it George Paul?
Or is it, as the thumbnail, do you prefer Paul George or do you prefer John Ringo?
Oh, John Ringo. Yeah.
Nice. You feel, I mean, we'll see how it works out. Hard to argue with this being the best use of their cap space, but what are your like general expectations here?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be pretty good. I think if you were going to make this move, like if you were going to do the star hunting route, which is Daryl Morey, like at his postseason press conference was like, yeah, we're not getting role players. Like he was not honestly, after the Sixers lost to the Knicks, I was like, role players don't sound so bad. Like it's playoffs are a war of attrition, those type of thing. He was like, okay. So if you were going to go this route, and I think looking at some of the salaries that some of the role players are getting, I can buy this. The big thing in the NBA now, Bo, is that like teams trade their entire drafts for somebody as good as Paul George, and I get it. Like I'm going into this with my eyes wide open. Like he's older, some of the, like, why did the Clippers let him leave? That's another parallel to
Nnamdi. I know you mentioned them in the newsletter today. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, they mentioned the whole second apron thing, but if they were going to offer him a 3-year deal, like that still was going to come into play for these next few years. So I don't completely understand that. Maybe we look back on that as a sign and it was not as good. I don't know. But I think in terms of like what Daryl Morey had ahead of him, like I think it was the best use of their resources. And like you look at like the Knicks a couple weeks ago, they traded for Mikal Bridges, and obviously he's got a family member who works with us and who is a big supporter of his. I think Mikal is a fine basketball player. He is not even close to 5 first-round picks better than Paul George. He might be 0 first-round picks better than Paul George. And I wrote in the newsletter today that I think the last time an all-star changed teams was 2019. These guys, they opt into their contracts, then they demand to get traded. So to just get somebody for having to pay nothing but the money is a big deal. So we'll see. I think they'll be pretty good. I was thinking about it, where the Philly sports teams are in the hierarchy right now. Mm-hmm. And to me, bringing it back to the Eagles, it's pretty clear to me that the Eagles are the big wild card team of the 4 Philly teams right now, right? You got the Phillies, they're at the top. They are championship contender, inner circle. If they lose in the playoffs, it's going to be heartbreaking, that type of thing. They have a team that actually can win it all. Sixers are a notch or 2 down from them. They're going to be good. They're going to be a top 4 seed. They're not in that inner circle of contenders. Maybe something goes right for them. Maybe they get some injury luck for the first time ever. And the Flyers are rebuilding. The Eagles are the one team I don't have a handle on, right? They could be better than the Sixers, just as they were a couple years ago, right? If everything goes right. But I don't think their place in the NFC hierarchy is set in stone, I would say. So in a lot of ways, I kind of view them and their season as the most interesting. Because we just don't. I think they're going to be good, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen there.
I agree. Yeah, I think there's a wide variance, and I think there is some combustion floor. And
yeah,
if you disagree and you want to bet on the Eagles to win the Super Bowl, it's time for me to tell you about our friends at BetParx. Because we are brought to you by the BetParx app. You can get in the zone with the BetParx Sportsbook app. The money is in the moments. You've got the Phillies games going on. You got the Euros going on. Copa America. U.S. has crashed out. We can get to that in a little bit. But all that good stuff you can bet on. Make it a little more interesting and potentially win some hooch. You can win big with all-day action and win your first $10 bet to earn $125 in sports bonus bets. You play for fun. You love to win. You bet. Download the app and play along with us. Must be 21 or older. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And this episode, we are also brought to you by our friends at Shady Rays. When you're grilling on the 4th tomorrow, you're having a good time. You don't want to get the sun in your eyes. You want to have those Shady Rays on so you can get ready for the season with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated by 5 stars for over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. And they probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. The other thing that I love about Shady Rays, and this is no joke, the best customer service exchange policy possible. If you don't love your shades, you can exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There is no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Hook for you guys. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right. You ready, Rich?
Yeah.
Topic number 2. You do a very good job with the flyer stuff on the newsletter. I can't tell if you know what you're talking about or not. Are you faking it? Are you just taking Charlie and Bill's words for it? How are you going about the flyer stuff?
I'm taking a lot of Charlie and Bill's words for it, but I feel like it's like anything, you listen to them for a long enough time, you gain more of an interest. And I certainly know a lot more about hockey than I did 9 months ago, I would say. But yeah, of course I'm still leaning on them. But I do think I've gained at least some knowledge from consistently doing it and kind of learning the state of the Flyers. I mean, I think in a lot of ways they are similar to what the Sixers were 10 years ago, right? They are just they're tearing this thing down and they're trying to get stars, and they got their guy a couple weeks ago. That's very exciting. But it's going to take a couple years, and that's okay. But yes, am I leaning on Charlie and Bill for a lot of my knowledge? Yes, absolutely. They do a great job.
Kelly too. Of it, fantastic. And with that in mind, the Michkov impending debut. Is there an Eagles facsimile for the excitement here, as they're hoping that this young guy is the star to lead the turnaround? You know, is this Carson Wentz? Do you go all the way back? Is this Donovan McNabb? What do you think? What's the proxy here?
I think it's probably Wentz is the guy I was thinking of. Just because, and let's say it's Wentz.
There's some old tweet of him saying, "I'm going to cut off my own dick" in Russian.
Yeah, maybe
some trick shot videos with his buddies.
Yeah, let's say it's Wentz, but it's like 2 or 3 weeks into his rookie season when there's like actually some evidence that, okay, he's pretty good, right?
Okay.
Like, we don't know how this is going to turn out, but there's excitement building up, because I guess I just didn't really know what to think of Carson when they drafted him, right? This guy from North Dakota State who played on this loaded college team, but the Eagles, they make all of these crazy trades to get up to number 2. Who knows what they actually have? They were pretty confident the Rams were going to take Goff at number 1, so they get Wentz at 2. I think that's probably it. Like I remember in that first year, especially when they started off hot, like that Steelers game, that week 3 game against the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my buddy, who's like the most like cynical Eagles fan ever, told me, he was like, I think we actually have a guy for the first time in a long time. And I actually agreed with him. I was like, yeah, it seems like they actually have figured out the quarterback. I don't know how good this guy is going to be, but he's going to be one of the 10 or so quarterbacks that matter, that you can win with, that type of thing. So that's, I guess it's hard to have the same sort of situation as Michkov, because they don't really take players from other countries in football, except for Jordan Mailata, of course.
There you go.
But yeah, it's not as prevalent where there's like, a major football league in another country, and getting them over and is a whole different thing. So it's a little bit hard, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think the Donovan and Wentz were both a little bit, did we get the right guy from the beginning? Whereas it doesn't seem like that's the opinion of Michkov, right? It's like, this is the guy, we just got to get him over.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's what everybody said. It sounded like he was the second best player in last year's draft. They had Connor Bedard was the first guy, and he was just like generational prospect. But this guy would have went second if he was coming over right away, and teams were confident about that. But in a very process move, Danny the diplomat was like, I'm going to take this guy and we'll wait the 3 years. But instead, he works the back channels and gets him over in a year, and seems like a great deal. So it seems like he's good. Like, everybody says, Charlie and Bill, and they've kind of pointed me in the direction of other hockey writers. It seems like it's pretty rare for a kid his age to be like putting up that many points in the KHL. So we'll see. I think it's also good for the Flyers this year too, because obviously they are kind of 4th on the current Philadelphia pecking order. And they even said, like, after the season, their front office, they're like, hey, we might take a step back this year. Like, we might not be as competitive as we were for most of this season, until they fell apart at the end, until they realized they weren't very good. I think it's much more tenable for a fan base if you have this kind of like amazing prospect who,
totally
not driving them to wins, but at least like if he shows enough where it's like,
that's the reason to come to the arena every day is to watch this guy, right?
And if he just does enough, where he just like enough flashes, enough good plays, like it's like, all right, we got something here, and we can, hopefully draft somebody good in this draft, that type of thing. So that's
Shane in the chat says the KHL stats are not just rare for his age, has never happened before. So
that's true. So
all right, let's talk Phils now. You talked about it before. Right now at the pecking order, they're at the top. Feels like anything less than a World Series appearance would, at this point, be a disappointment. That's a
I'm
very
already
high
nervous for
bar.
October, man.
But where would you put like your enjoyment as a fan of this baseball season for the Phillies? Is there an Eagles season that it compares to? I have one in mind, but I want to let you go first.
This is really enjoyable, I would say. It's funny. As far as the timeline is concerned, I actually think it reminds me a little more of 2022, just because we know who a lot of the players are. They have been to a Super Bowl, kind of the older core members of that team, just like Bryce and Schwarber and JT. But I think in terms of enjoyment, I just remember that 2017 season, like in the middle of the year when like the defense starts doing the electric slide, and they were just clowning teams in the middle of the year. And it feels like this Phillies team, I really enjoy watching them every night, like they just they've dealt with some injuries. Doesn't really matter. They just continue to pitch really well and pluck guys from AAA and kind of under the radar signings and continue to do well. I know it's a little bit of a cop out to just say, oh, it reminds me of the 2 Super Bowl seasons. Those are the most fun. But I mean, they really, like, the Eagles did not have, a Pittsburgh Steelers 2005 run where they're the 6th seed and then they just go to the Super Bowl. Like, when they've made the Super Bowl, they've been the best team in the NFC both times.
Yeah, and I think baseball is different because, I mean, the season is so long. It's the only thing on during the summer. I think in baseball, more than other sports, like, the journey does matter more than the destination, right? Like,
Absolutely.
You will remember the regular season more than even if they do flame out in the playoffs. But I think timeline-wise, I would compare it to the 2004 because it's like, okay, this team is really, really good. But can they get over they went to the World Series,
I
they
like
went
that,
to the NLCS. Yeah. Now it's like, this is a lot of fun. We've got TO, like this is great, but we probably will remember if this team gets it done or not. Like, if they don't, then it's going to be looked at and like the whole era may be seen as a slight disappointment.
That 2004 team had a lot of baggage heading into it. And I think that was part of the genius of acquiring TO, right? Is that like, you had this new amazing player who kind of took the spotlight off, like, man, they actually better get this done when it matters, because there have been some horrific playoff losses that this core has handed to this city. I guess that the only difference is the Phillies don't have that new player this year.
True.
It's a lot of their older guys just playing well.
T.O.
He is he's the Dhani Jones of that team, of this Phillies team. Yeah, but no, I agree with you. Like, just that is a better comparison from a timeline standpoint, because that was the same group of players. They had been one of the best teams in the league for a few years, had not gotten over the hump, and 2004 was kind of a make or break year in that regard.
I do think the vibes, though, 2017 is the right.
There's good vibes. Like, even last night, like Kyle Schwarber, Michael Mercado makes his first start at Wrigley Field. Just a guy who, he might have been the 8th pitcher on the organizational starting depth chart. Makes his first start, gives up a couple hard hits, but gives him a very professional 5 innings, 1 run. And like, he's like a shy guy. Seems like a really, really nice, kind of grateful kid for, kind of can't believe where he is. And Kyle Schwarber's like, no, man, like you're leading the high fives tonight. Like, that was awesome. So yeah, their vibes are, I hate like focusing on, oh man, the vibes are immaculate here, because I think sometimes that can be misleading, and I'm a little bit of a curmudgeon in that regard, but their vibes are immaculate. There's just nothing wrong with it right now.
Who's the Schwarber equivalent, you think, on the Eagles?
On the 2004 Eagles?
Or the current Eagles, or the 22, guy who is very good, but it's almost like the juice that he brings just every day as a vibes guy almost outweighs how good he is as a player.
Little bit of, maybe not the vibes, but like Deshaun Jackson, like an actual home run hitter.
Oh, interesting.
Where,
okay.
He for a while there, he mainly had one trick, but it was a very valuable trick, and he was a core member of that group, and somebody who the fan base really liked as well. It's funny. I have a cousin, Bo, who I've compared to Kyle Schwarber a lot, because he either, like, when he makes a joke, he either like completely whiffs, or it's like the funniest thing you've ever heard in your life. Like, he's made me laugh harder five or so times than anybody I've ever met. But he's also just like actual crickets, like actual like Joe Shane, John Mara level crickets on a daily basis or whatever. I don't know if Kyle Schwarber's like that.
Yeah, you're not going to remember the singles hitter.
No, not at all. Like, not like a polite little laugh, just a little giggle, little cackle. Nope.
You don't want Juan Pierre as a jokester. He'll be like, give me
Ben Revere. Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, I like that. So, let's get him on the pod. All right. Well, don't sleep on this Phillies team. You know what I'm saying? Because it's time for me to tell you about our friends at Sleep Healthy PA. Because at Sleep Healthy PA, they are committed to helping Philadelphia residents stop the snore and find solutions for sleep apnea that will allow you to rest well and improve your health. What causes sleep apnea? Well, we've talked about this before. There's a little choke point in the throat that causes snoring. That's kind of like a kink in the garden hose. And what Dr. Andrew Cohen wants to do is help you unkink that bad boy. Dr. Andrew Cohen, board certified in dental sleep medicine, and his staff will work one-on-one with you to provide first-class care that will meet your needs. Many physicians are not equipped to provide other options outside of CPAP machines. And sometimes those CPAP machines work, but we're talking a cumbersome piece of machinery, right? Is that really how you want to go through your night? Is your significant other tired of the snoring or the CPAP machine? Well, be careful, because the copy here says that 50% of divorces cite snoring as a main issue. Based in Jenkintown, Dr. Andrew Cohen has worked for years to educate dentists across the country on his personal approach to helping those with sleep apnea. His team is committed to stopping the snore. So tell him PHLY sent you and receive 15% off your initial workup. The process is twofold. You got a 2-hour initial exam that's split into 2 sessions. There's the information gathering with the medical history and imaging, and then there's the reviewing of results and the sharing of recommendations. If you are experiencing sleep apnea and are looking for a custom solution to stop the snore, reach out to Dr. Andrew Cohen at sleephealthy.com, sleephealthypa.com, or call 215-337-2501. That's sleephealthypa.com. Tell him PHLY sent you. And after you do that, well, maybe head on over to TrueMark Financial Credit Union, because HELOC is, we're talking a home equity line of credit, a HELOC. Sounds mysterious, sounds dangerous, but it's not. A HELOC allows homeowners to borrow against home equity with a variable interest rate, preserve your savings, and get access to funds as needed for big renovations, education expenses, or emergencies. Use TrueMark Financial's budgeting tools to save for special purchases like limited edition merchandise. Regular contributions accumulate over time to reach saving goals effectively. You can transfer as little as $5 a week to give you $260, more than enough for a Kelly Green jersey. That's what we're talking about. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit truemark.com/PHLY. All right, Rich, I want to talk U.S. soccer with you now. Dipping away from Philadelphia. I mean, Berhalter. I have a comp here for you. I think Berhalter is like Press Taylor. Okay. Now, I actually think that Press Taylor got a bit of a bad rap in Philadelphia. I don't think he was the boogeyman that he was described as. However, you have Press Taylor. He underwhelms. Like, the offense does not perform. And then it goes to Doug Peterson. And it's like, okay, hey, we need you to do better here. Doug's like, no, I'm going to ride with my guy. There's maybe there's a little bit of cronyism going on. And Jeffrey Lurie's like, I mean, if you're going to ride with him, you're both gone. And I'm thinking, like, okay, if we're running it back with Berhalter and the results have spoken for themselves, I'm not saying that he's the reason they lost. They didn't get out of the group stage, right? Tim Weah can't just be shoving people in the head.
Bad red card.
That Uruguay game was nuts. But like there's got to be some proof of concept here. And if we're going back to the well and this is your best idea and these are the results, I'm sorry, you got to go.
Completely agree. And well, I like the Press Taylor comp too, because, he's a brother of another person in the profession as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. As much as it pains me though, you asked me for the Philly sports comparison, and I think it's Brett Brown. Unfortunately, Brett Brown, who's a friend of mine, someone who had the support of the younger players, someone who has kind of grown with the team, and someone who's probably not going to get a head coaching job of this caliber again if they do move on from him, unfortunately. Now, I do think Greg Berhalter did not come up with the Philly special, did not look that up. So he doesn't have that on his resume.
True.
Like Press Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, we just need a new coach. Like you know more about this than I do. Like I'll let you go on this. It's ridiculous. Like how many chances does this guy get? Like he got a full cycle last time. Okay, they beat Mexico at home. Great. Like there's a bunch of coaches that beat Mexico at home in the qualifying rounds. Like that's fine. Like you got us to the World Cup, did exactly what you were expected to do.
Fine, yeah.
Right. But like not a very competitive game against the Netherlands in the round of 16. And then we're playing at home in the Gold Cup, man. Like sorry, not the Gold Cup. The what is this one called?
Copa America.
It's the CONMEBOL. It's the South American tournament. They put this in our country, Bo. They put it in our football stadiums, our American football stadiums, and we can't get out of the group against Panama and Bolivia. It's time to go.
I think there is. I think the golden generation description of this player crop is a little bit overstated. And somebody made the point on Twitter. I don't know who it was, but like maybe the biggest difference from this generation and the other ones is that just like top European teams are willing to have Americans on the teams now. Like I don't think that Yunus Musa is that much better of a player than Michael Bradley or like Brian McBride is better than Ricardo Pepi, right? Like some of these differences are minor. I just do think, and like all of these guys love Berhalter so much. I like the Brett Brown comparison here because I remember in the lead up to the Copa America, like all the reports from the camp are like, oh, this is as tight of a team as I've ever seen. Like, oh, what the vibes here are immaculate, and we're making fun of the vibes, but like,
play like
who cares? Like, have some teeth. This team they don't play with any. To circle back to the Giants' identity thing, but like identity or grit or anything. It just a second cycle is so usually rare to begin with for a reason, and to do it for someone who did not overperform, does not have like any kind of extra edge, along with everything swirling around the fact that his brother works for the organization and they had the Reina thing. Like, I'm sorry. This is such a unique opportunity to have the World Cup at home. If you can't get out of the group in the Copa America, like, I'm sorry, we got to just do something different. Now is the time.
Completely agree. And I know. So what do you think of kind of the U.S. men's job versus the women's job? Because a lot of people have pointed out the women made a great hire. They hired Emma Hayes from Chelsea, and it seems like they're back on the right track. That's like a top tier hire. That's somebody who is kind of at the top of her profession. Now, I would say the difference is that the U.S. women are good. They've been consistently good for a long time. That's right. As far as national team jobs go, that is one of the glamour positions in women's soccer. But man, like I still can't get on board with like, okay, the men are not as good. They're not as advanced as the women are. It's still like an amazing opportunity, right? Like they're hosting the World Cup here. And if you are the guy or girl, whatever, if you are the person that turns the men's team around, gets them into the quarterfinals, and I'm sure
we'll take it. Yeah.
I'm sure the ghost of Sepp Blatter is cooking up like the most cupcake route to the quarters. Like they want the U.S. to go far.
Yeah.
Don't even have to qualify this time. You're in. You're going to be in Group A, and we're going to put you against 3 patsies and probably give you a very winnable knockout stage game as well. It just feels like a tremendous opportunity. And if you're not shooting higher than Greg Berhalter, I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree. A great super chat from Corey, who says, it seems clear that we can't work it out with his coach. They should just fire him and let it be.
Let it be.
Nicely done. You big Beatles guy?
I like the Beatles. Yeah. Like I feel like it's hard to be not a Beatles guy, just because their songs are so
ubiquitous,
omnipresent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I like to break out a little Beatles impression every now and then.
Oh yeah, are you distinguishing between the?
No, absolutely not.
No,
you gotta fire Berhalter. The guy, he's got no juice. Unbelievable.
Come on, Paul. Yeah.
Shoot the ball for him. What are we doing with Pulisic and Reyna on the wings? Get them inside. Get them in space.
Have you ever seen the Beatles doc on I think it was Disney Plus? It was like 3 or 4 years ago it came out.
I was like interested in it, the idea of it, and like to watch the craft, and I think I lasted like 25 minutes. That was all I could do.
Yeah, the craft is a little long. It's like 8 hours of footage. So if you are like a super music sicko, I'm sure you would love it. Now there were a couple selected scenes where like you could see that that Paul and John were like they finally like they hit something, they tripped on something that was good. I think it's Get Back was the song, and it was like, wow, that's pretty impressive, their talent. But anyway, the last I'd say hour of it though, they do a concert on a roof in London, in like downtown London, and it is like an amazing hour of footage because they have like the police on the street being like, what the hell is going on up there? Like they certainly didn't have like a permit to do it or anything. And there's people like walking out of their offices, and it's like, they're talking to like some, 35-year-old woman on the street, and she's like, I think that's Paul McCartney, but like, that's crazy. Like, what would he be doing up there? It's 2:00 on Thursday afternoon or whatever. So that's pretty good. I would recommend watching the last hour of that.
Okay, I like that. Good rec. All right, I got another. If we want to keep this going, I got a Jared McCain one for you.
Sure.
Let's find our Eagles draft equivalent. Is this a guy who's drafted for a specific role, like an Avonte Maddox, in the 4th round in 2018, or a Daniel Ta'onasaim in 2013? Like, we just need this interior pass rusher. We think he can do this. Is this a guy who, like his one best skill is the most valuable skill? Maybe that's like I'm trying to think of a pass rusher who can get to the quarterback, like a Derek Barnett, I guess would be the equivalent there. Where do you see Jared McCain falling in?
The thing that I thought about is something that's important, I think, in every single sport, including football. And I think there are some Eagles tie-ins here. And that's like the idea of having multiple timelines, like replenishing the pipeline. And like, look, you're not going to get it 100% right. In basketball, the Golden State Warriors just tried to do this after they won the championship a couple years ago. Joe Lacob, who has a very high opinion of himself and, tripped into this amazing core group of players, was like,
well, Zach would say that Bob Myers is the reason that they were so good.
That's true. That's true. He's a big Bob Myers guy. Bob Iger guy as well. Did you see Bob Iger is buying into an NWSL
Is it him
team?
or his wife who's but yes, I saw the report.
I saw the headline. I don't know exactly. It could be his wife. Anyway, could be a lot of leadership running that team. But yeah, the Joe Lacob was obsessed with this idea that we're gonna have 2 timelines. We're gonna be good now and we're gonna be good later. And he didn't realize, like, hey, your second group of players are not like a championship caliber core. In fact, the guy they took second, James Wiseman, kind of stinks. Yeah. So That's why I liked that the Sixers took McCain the other night. I think a lot of people were like, are they going to trade the pick? Are they going to try and do the thing with DeAnthony Melton? But like, I like the idea of, if it's not a Tyrese Maxey type home run pick or whatever, just getting like a rotation player. And I have no idea if Jared McCain is going to be a rotation player. But the idea of like taking a swing on a pick and like maybe in a couple years, instead of being like, man, we don't have a backup point guard, we don't have somebody who can make shots off Maxey and Embiid. Sometimes your draft pick like turns into that guy, and it's like on a cheap contract. So I don't know if that was the right pick or not. I know you had some takes when we were at Garage about Dalton Connect and his age. You were grabbing your bag
to disintegrate. I mean, he was at that Beatles concert, I believe.
I think he was. So we'll see. Like I like the idea of not doing the 2 timeline thing, but being like, look, it's important to try and take some swings on younger players as well, who, as our older guys get more expensive, or if we phase them out, they can step into roles. And it's like what the Phillies have right now with the daycare, right? They're that group of Bohm and Stott, who's struggling a little bit now, and Marsh. Like, yeah, they're not as good as Harper, Schwarber, Real Muto, Turner, but like, they play a role on a really good team. And like a couple of those guys are probably going to be here for 10 years. And I think it's important to have, kind of a next generation, whether that's with the Phillies with Aiden Miller, or, I'm sure the Flyers are going to run into that as they get better as well. It's interesting to me though, Bo, is that like, it felt like the Eagles tried to do this a little bit with the Georgia guys, right? Like they had their, and I think it's rare in football to actually be able to do the 2 timeline thing, because turnover is just so crazy at most of the positions outside of quarterback, outside some of the line spots. It's, it's really hard to have staying power, but the Eagles had 2 guys who were here. They have multiple guys actually, but 2 guys who just retired, who were here for forever while they had these Georgia guys waiting in the wings. And so far, like the Georgia guys, Jalen Carter, I think is going to be very, very good. But the rest of them have a lot to prove, and they do not have the kind of safety net of Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce still playing really well in the final years of their careers.
Well, of those 4 guys, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, I guess 5 guys, Nakobe Dean, Keely Ringo. Would you agree that outside of Jalen Carter, Keely Ringo is the one you have the most faith in, like overperforming their draft slot?
Oh yeah, when you factor in the draft slot as well, I think I might have the most faith in him just in general. I don't know. Maybe those OTA reports you guys were giving me.
I think you still got to go Carter, but.
Okay. You're.
You're saying of the other. I
thought you meant the
4,
other.
Just period. Him over Jordan Davis, Nakobe. I think I might agree with that too. Actually.
Yeah. No, I don't have more faith in him than Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter, I think, is going to be very good. But but of the other, compared to the other 3 guys, it's kind of crazy to pick the guy who's only really played in a couple games. Be like, oh yeah, he flashed on this terrible defense, but
right.
That's the state of things right now.
Those June practices. I think on the draft front, I don't think there is any sport where you're going to be rewarded for overvaluing the current fit. Like, and it seems like such a conversation in the NBA specifically. I made the reference to Fran the other day, but like, I was listening to these like the who's the guy the Thunder took, the injured Topic, is that his
Topic?
Name? Yeah, like, oh well, they've already got ball handlers. What are they doing drafting another ball handler? Like, the guy's 18 years old. He's injured. He's going to be out for the year. Like, he's 2 years away. The draft is, everyone's telling me it's not a good draft. Like, if you think Jared McCain has a better chance of being a rotational player, get the good player, not the guy who might, in theory, be a better fit for the 2024 Sixers. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
I agree, and it's also a thing with Morey. I think his drafts have been like kind of underrated because he doesn't really value them as much, and they're picking later. Like his 2020 draft is like as good as it gets. Now he loses a little bit of credit because he let Isaiah Joe go, but like, all-star at 21. I forget where Isaiah Joe was in the 40s, but like rotation player who just got a nice contract, and then B-Ball Paul was like the second to last pick in the draft. Like, that's pretty good. So hopefully Jared McCain works out. I certainly do not care at all about his TikToks and his painted nails. He can keep doing that all he wants. If he can make threes, that's great. Well
said. Is it Isaiah Joe or Joe Isaiah?
It's Isaiah Joe.
Oh, got it. All right. Any other tangentially related Eagles things that you would like to discuss before hopping off, Rich?
I guess we could do, is it Paul Reed or is it Reed Paul as well?
Ah, that's good. Reed Paul George.
Any other tangential Eagles things? Yeah, I think the one point I wanted to make, because we were talking about where the Philly teams all stack up. I actually think the Eagles are probably going to be better than the Sixers this year. But I did want to mention the volatility. Like, if Nick Sirianni has a rough first month this year, the conversation is not going to be the same as what the hell is Nick Nurse doing with this if the Sixers go 8-6 in October, November.
Right.
I just think a level of pressure is different.
I mean, it would be like if Greg Popovich got fired from the Spurs and had talked to Josh Harris over the summer, and they had a bad first month of the season. Oh, well, maybe they can go to Pop. The Belichick thing is very looming. And I think you're right. Nick is the guy, probably more than Jalen, who is going to get the blowback early on if they do not come out of the gates.
Definitely. One more Sixers thing that cracked me up. It's kind of an Eagles tie-in as well. Josh Harris loves him some pointless collaboration. Loves it.
Oh, this is so funny.
The idea that he had Daryl Morey talk to Adam Peters and the Commanders brain trust about what's it like to have 2 days of the draft or whatever, as if Daryl Morey, who's been, I think, a very good NBA GM for basically 2 decades now.
Yeah.
He couldn't figure it out. And Adam Peters is the one that's a great idea there, Adam.
And I mean, you have to imagine the level of eye rolling that had to come from Daryl Morey to have to participate in this meeting, because I know for a fact that in the Commanders' search for their own general manager, they talked to Morey and they wanted to get his input on the kinds of things to look for. Right. That seems like a fine piece of collaboration. But to do the reverse, well, let's make it fair. And Adam Peters can tell you what it's like to sleep on a draft board. Give me a break.
Well, I was also thinking, did Bob Myers, was he the one who gave us DQ?
Yeah, maybe.
They run into each other. I don't know where, but
yeah, the new market inefficiency is backward hats.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Well, Rich, thank you for spending time with us today. Enjoy your 4th. We're going to get the PHLY podcast is going to get a lot of handsome Rich over the next couple of weeks. So we're looking forward to that. You and ZB spending some time together. Happy 4th. Thanks for hanging.
Happy 4th, everybody.
That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Enjoy your holiday, and then stay tuned over the next couple weeks. ZB back from vacation. Him and Rich and some other rotating guests will be a lot of fun. I'm out of here. So I look forward to seeing you guys in a couple weeks. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. For Julia, thank you for making it all happen today. We'll talk to you on Friday at noon. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.